Live, our top story at this hour. First, a look at the latest coming in on the rescue operations which are undergoing at Uttarkashi tunnel, where 41 workers are still trapped. 2 kilometers of tunnel already made trying to access some workers. 35 meters drilling has been done by Ogre machine. Almost half of the 70-meter distance has been reached. 25 meters of vertical drilling also completed. A 6-inch pipe has been installed in the debris for food as well as communication. 5 experts from across the world are at the site to give advice. Trapped workers have ample space. Lighting is also available inside the tunnel. Survival rations are being pushed through a compressor. And the first visuals of the 41 trapped laborers in an under construction tunnel in Uttarkashi brought all-round relief on Tuesday, which was the 10th day of their getting stranded behind a heap of about 60-meter rubble. The focus is now on the rescue operation in Uttarkashi and on the horizontal drilling to rescue the trapped workers from inside the tunnel. A 6-inch food pipe has been laid yesterday at the Silkyara tunnel in Uttarkashi, and it has since become fully functional. About 5 to 10 kilograms each of different fruits like apples, oranges, sweet lime, and 5 dozens of bananas have also been successfully delivered inside for the trapped workers. Later, food items such as khichdi and roti sabzi were also given to the trapped workers. The food was prepared under the supervision of a doctor so that it is easily digestible by those who have been trapped. The Indian Air Force flew in a further 18 tons of load from Rourkela in Odisha to Dehradun. Specialist equipment is also being flown in from Bengaluru in Karnataka. Rescue workers say there is sufficient water, oxygen, power and light inside the tunnel. A few families of the trapped workers have been transported and they spoke to the men trapped in the tunnel. Survival rations, medicines and other essentials are also being pushed through a compressor into the space where these workers have been trapped.
उसको बोलो वॉकी टॉकी अगर पाइप के पास ला सकते हो तो.
The visuals of the trapped workers. This is an endoscopic camera which has captured the trapped workers inside. Very, very brave and resilient, one must say, of course. Food is also being sent to them, as also water, oxygen. There is power as well as light. The food which has been sent inside with a compressor is supposed to be light kind of food which is easily digestible and ingested by those who have been trapped inside. But one thing is there, immense mental strength, and really salute to all these men who've been there for 10 days now. Those are also visuals of the rescue equipment which is being now put in order to help those who've been trapped inside the tunnel for almost 10 days. The operations are undergoing and there is a lot of hope that one shall see them outside alive and healthy.
सर कितने मीटर सड़क आपने बना लिया है?
1200 मीटर
1200 मीटर सड़क आपने बना ली है?
जी जी जी।
तो क्या जो ड्रिलिंग की गाड़ी ऊपर जानी है उसके लिए हम अब तैयार हैं?
हमने उस ड्रिलिंग की गाड़ी को भी पुल करा के ऊपर पहुंचा दिया।
कितनी गाड़ी पहुंच चुकी है?
2 गाड़ी ड्रिलिंग की पहुंची है।
जो मशीन अभी पहुंची है उसका वेट कितना था?
ये मेरी काम नहीं था, मैंने बीआरओ का काम था ट्रैक बनाना, मैंने ट्रैक बना दिया।
शुरू हो सकता है वर्टिकल ड्रिलिंग का? अगर
वो मेरे पास नहीं है, मैंने ट्रैक बनाना था, 48 घंटे में हमने ट्रैक बना के दे दिया है। उसके आगे पूरा कंप्लीट हो गया, लॉजिस्टिक स्टार्ट हो गया है, हमारी रोड थ्रू है।
ड्रिलिंग पॉइंट तक आप रोड बना के दे दिए?
राइट।
ओह यस, आई कैन से दैट, बिल्कुल अच्छा है, बहुत अच्छा है। 39 तक हम पहुंच गए हैं।
39 सर,
जी जी,
मेजर ब्रेक थ्रू सर।
जी जी, हम पहुंच गए हैं और उम्मीद रखते हैं सब ठीक होगा। आई स्पोक टू देम, ऑल ऑफ देम आर इन हाई स्पिरिट्स। काम करने का पॉजिटिव एनवायरनमेंट बना हुआ है. लेट अस होप we will be able to achieve it.
So right now we've obviously got the new 6-inch pipe in, the lifeline pipe in, and so works are being done to get that fully functioning. It's got the vision at the moment, but to get it even working better. The works are being done for the augering for the evacuation tunnel, which is being drilled as well. Works are also being done to create safe places within the tunnel. As I mentioned yesterday, this is still an extremely dangerous environment, so we're making it safe for the rescuers in there as well. And I've observed all of that. Like I've just come out of that. We've just had some discussions. There are technical issues in there now. There'll be technical issues in there till the men are rescued and beyond. And my next job is to go up on top of the mountain, to the side of the mountain, to the back of the mountain, and check progress there as well.
The following content may contain visuals that are disturbing, graphic, or sensitive in nature. Viewer discretion is advised. This material is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all viewers. Please exercise caution while watching, and if you find such content distressing, we recommend discontinuing viewing. This disclaimer is provided to ensure awareness and to prioritize viewer well-being.
The war between Israel and Hamas has entered its 47th day. The Israeli government voted to back a deal for Palestinian Hamas terrorists to free 50 women and children held as hostages in Gaza in exchange for a 4-day pause in fighting. The hostage release shall be in exchange for the 150 Palestinian women and children from jails in Israel. A prominent Israeli daily has reported that the ceasefire shall last for 4 days. The deal, of course, includes 308 trucks being sent in to Gaza from Egypt. Hospitals in Israel are preparing to receive the hostages. Over 14,000 Palestinians have been killed, with over 5,000 children have been casualties. 69 IDF soldiers have been so far killed in ground operation. Israel has also slammed the WHO for ignoring terror activities at Al-Shifa hospital. The Saudi Crown Prince has meanwhile asked all countries to stop arms exports to Israel. South Africa's Ramaphosa accuses Israel of war crimes and genocide. On your screen right now, the 47th day of the Israel-Hamas conflict. In a significant development, the Israeli government has given the green light to a deal resulting in the release of 50 hostages from Gaza. This marks a notable shift, with Israel agreeing to a ceasefire for at least 4 days, the first since the outbreak of the war. The report suggests the potential release of 30 more hostages, extending the pause by a day for every group of 10 additional hostages located and free. The first release of hostages is expected on Thursday. The delay is being caused because if the deal is agreed upon, there must be a 24-hour waiting period before it is implemented to give Israeli citizens the chance to ask the Supreme Court to block the release of Palestinian prisoners. In preparation for the released hostages, 6 hospitals in Israel are readying designated compounds to receive them separately from other patients and the media, as reported by Haaretz. Moreover, the deal comprises an agreement by Israel to permit around 308 trucks daily to enter Gaza from Egypt, along with additional fuel provisions.
יש בחוץ דיבורי הבל, כאילו אחרי ההפוגה להשבת חטופינו, אנחנו נפסיק את המלחמה. אז אני מבקש להבהיר, אנחנו במלחמה, ונמשיך במלחמה. נמשיך במלחמה עד שנשיג את כל היעדים שלנו. במלחמה יש שלבים, וגם בהשבת החטופים יש שלבים. אבל אנחנו לא נרפה עד שנשיג את הניצחון המוחלט ועד שנחזיר את כולם. עכשיו לפנינו הערב החלטה קשה, אבל היא ההחלטה הנכונה. כל גורמי הביטחון תומכים בה באופן מלא. הם הבהירו במלוא הערכתם המקצועית שביטחון כוחותינו יובטח בימי ההפוגה ושהמאמץ המודיעיני יישמר בימים אלה.
Now, the full statement on the deal from the Israeli government is as follows. The government committed to bringing all hostages home. Government has approved the first stage of hostage release. At least 50 hostages, including women and children, to be released first. The release of every additional 10 hostages will result in one additional day in the pause. The government of Israel, the IDF and the security services shall continue the war in order to return home all of the hostages, complete the elimination of Hamas and ensure that there shall be no new threat to the state of Israel from Gaza. According to Hamas, the deal includes the entry of hundreds of trucks carrying humanitarian, medical and fuel aid to all the Gaza Strip areas, both in the north as well as in the south, halting air traffic in the south for 4 days. Halting air traffic as well in the north for 6 hours daily. During the pause in fighting, Israel agrees not to target or arrest anyone in the entirety of the Gaza Strip. Hamas has so far released only 4 captives. This includes U.S. citizen Judith Raanan, 59 years old, and her daughter Natalie Raanan, 17 years old, on 20th of October, citing humanitarian reasons. Israeli women Nurit Cooper, 79 years old, and Yoshevit Lifshitz, 85 years, were also released on 23rd of October. But then who exactly are the hostages who are being held captive in the Palestinian enclave? Let's take a look. Now, Israel reports a total of 138 hostages with foreign passports representing over 40 countries and also nationalities including 17 Argentinians, 12 Germans, 6 French and 6 Russians. Recent estimates put the total captive count at around 240, with approximately 33 children amongst those who have been taken captive. Hamas has released only 4 hostages till date, heightening concerns over the safety of the remaining captives. Notably, the Israeli military successfully rescued a soldier taken hostage on 7th of October. Tragically, the bodies of 2 hostages were recovered on 16th of November. And we're staying on the Israel-Hamas conflict. Notably, only 3 cabinet ministers opposed the deal, all belonging to the religious Zionism party. The full cabinet comprises 38 members from a number of different parties. Some strong critics of the deal came from the far right. Itamar Ben-Gvir, the national security minister, expressed opposition to the deal. He also added that he believes Hamas's approval of the hostage deal indicates the Israeli army is carrying out an effective attack. Israel's finance minister Bezalel Smotrich stated before the meeting that the deal was detrimental to Israel's security, the hostages, as also the IDF soldiers. But the question to ask is, why is there a 24-hour delay if the deal has been green-lighted? Early reports from Israeli media indicate that if the deal is ratified, the first batch of hostages could perhaps be released on Thursday. Now, this 24-hour waiting period post the deal's approval is to allow Israeli citizens to kind of petition the Supreme Court to block the release of Palestinian prisoners. A senior U.S. administration official outlined the details of the hostage deal with Hamas. According to this official, at least 50 women and children shall be released over 4 to 5 days. Also, that the U.S. hopes the Gaza pause will also be observed by Hezbollah as well as Israeli forces in northern Israel. The deal is structured to incentivize hostage releases beyond the initial 50. In some cases, Hamas needs a pause to locate hostages. Initial release will start 24 hours after the deal is reached. The U.S. anticipates more than 50 hostages shall be released in the initial phase. A rigorous inspection regime will prevent Hamas from obtaining more weaponry during the pause. So that was the latest we had on the Hamas and Israel conflict, which started in early October, and now on to Qatar. Meanwhile, Qatar has also confirmed the 4-day humanitarian pause in Gaza hostilities mediated by Qatar, Egypt and America. Qatar reveals that the number of those released will increase in later stages of the agreement's implementation. The start time of the pause is set to be announced within the next 24 hours, with the initial duration spanning 4 days, subject, of course, to extension. The statement, the full statement from the state of Qatar, which announces that a humanitarian pause has been agreed upon in Gaza. The Israeli army released visuals showing forces pushing further into the Gaza Strip, including what the army said was an anti-tank missile found under a baby's crib in a Palestinian home in the Hamas-controlled territory. The visuals released by the IDF shows Israeli bombing operations underway in the Gaza Strip even as the deal on hostages has been reached. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin, Chinese President Xi Jinping and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa called for a political solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict at a virtual BRICS summit. The meeting emphasized on several points on the conflict but did not have a joint declaration. Let's take a look.
Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday said the BRICS group of developing nations could help with a political solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The comments came during a televised summit where Putin again blamed the Middle East crisis on the failure of U.S. diplomacy.
We call for joint efforts of the international community aimed at de-escalating the situation, a ceasefire, and finding a political solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. And the BRICS states and countries of the region could play a key role in this work.
He did not explain how any effort might be organized. Russian and Western policy experts say Putin is trying to use the Gaza crisis to his advantage, as part of a strategy to court allies in developing countries. Calls for a ceasefire were also echoed by BRICS chair, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa.
As South Africa, we call for, first, an immediate and comprehensive ceasefire. We believe that BRICS has a vital role and a voice in a widespread international effort to achieve a just and lasting peace.
The BRICS group includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. In August, it agreed to expand by adding Saudi Arabia, Iran, Ethiopia, Egypt, Argentina, and the UAE, in a move aimed at accelerating its push to reshuffle a Western-dominated world order it sees as outdated.
Yemen's Iran-backed Houthis released a video on Monday showing armed men dropping from a helicopter and seizing a cargo ship in the southern Red Sea.
Houthi rebels from Yemen were seen storming a cargo ship in the Red Sea, in a video released by the Iran-backed group on Monday. Its fighters appeared to land by helicopter onto the top deck. They brandished weapons at the ship's crew and ordered them to lie down. The seized ship, the Galaxy Leader, is now in Yemen's Hodeidah port area, according to its owner, Galaxy Maritime, which is registered in the Isle of Man. The Houthi movement claims the Galaxy Leader has links to Israel. However, Israel has denied this and says the seized ship was British-owned and Japanese-operated. The owner confirmed the ship was illegally boarded on Sunday. Its crew of 25 is made up of nationals from Bulgaria, Ukraine, the Philippines, and other countries. All communications have since been cut with the vessel. The Houthis are a group aligned with Iran that have emerged as a major military force in the Arabian Peninsula. Last week, the leaders said they would target Israeli ships in the Red Sea and said attacks would continue until, quote, Israeli aggression, referring to the war against Hamas in the Gaza Strip, is stopped. A representative from Hamas thanked the Houthis for seizing the ship. He called it a welcome step in support of the Palestinian people. The United States on Monday denounced the seizure. It said it was a breach of international law and demanded the Houthis immediately release the vessel and its crew.
And in some news from home, J&K government dismissed 4 government employees for their alleged involvement in terrorism. In 4 separate orders, the government ordered the termination of a doctor, a constable, a teacher in the education department, and a lab bearer in the higher education department. The termination of employment was carried out by the government by invoking Article 3112 of the Constitution of India, which empowers the government to do so without an inquiry. And news coming in from Manipur. The Eastern Army Commander Lieutenant General Rana Pratap Kalita said that incident of violence will continue in Manipur unless the looted arms are recovered from the people. Around 4,000 weapons were looted from security forces during the unrest. Lieutenant General Rana Pratap Kalita also added that there needs to be a political solution to the issue and need to take both sides into confidence. Manipur has witnessed violence for the last several months between the valley settled Métis and the hill settled people. Moving on, Sam Altman reveals his return to OpenAI as CEO and emphasizes the plan to enhance the partnership with Microsoft. Meanwhile, discussions between Altman and OpenAI's board about his potential role as director on a transitional board continue. Take a look.
Investors in ChatGPT maker OpenAI are looking into whether they can sue the company's board after last week's surprise ouster of CEO Sam Altman. That's according to sources familiar with the matter who told Reuters exclusively that the investors are working with legal advisors to study their options. Altman's abrupt firing by the board of directors has triggered the threat of a mass exodus of OpenAI employees. Investors worry that they could lose hundreds of millions of dollars they invested in OpenAI, with the potential collapse of the hottest startup in the rapidly growing generative artificial intelligence sector. OpenAI did not respond to a request for comment. The board fired Altman on Friday after what an internal memo called a breakdown of communications. By Monday, most of OpenAI's more than 700 employees threatened to resign unless the company replaced the board. Reuters spoke with legal experts who said the structure of OpenAI would make it hard for investors to win a lawsuit against the board. Because OpenAI is controlled by a nonprofit parent company, experts said that gives the board a lot of leeway when it comes to leadership decisions. Also, OpenAI used a limited liability company as its operating arm, which makes it even harder to sue directors, according to one expert.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry said that it would be a serious mistake in Argentina's diplomacy if the South American nation were to cut ties with major countries like China or Brazil. China is an important trading partner for Argentina, and its elected government attaches great importance to relations with China. The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said at a regular news conference.
据我了解，你提到的内容与俄新社网站公布的采访内容有出入。蒙迪诺在采访中表示，外界对当选总统米莱的外交政策存在误读，没有哪个国家可以脱离外交关系来发展经贸合作。如果阿根廷同中国或巴西这样的大国断绝联系，将是阿根廷外交的严重错误。
Javier Milei, an Argentinian libertarian, secured a significant victory in the presidential runoff election, vowing to usher in a new era for the country. With voters pinning their hopes on this political outsider, the focus lies on addressing the country's challenges, such as triple-digit inflation, an impending recession, and increasing poverty, all in need of urgent resolution. Take a look.
Argentina elected the right-wing libertarian Javier Milei as its new president on Sunday. Voters rolled the dice on an outsider with radical views to fix an economy battered by runaway inflation, giving Milei, an economist and former TV pundit, a clear win with 56% of the ballots. He appears to have successfully harnessed a wave of public anger with Argentina's political mainstream.
Today brings an end to the impoverishing model of the omnipresent state that only benefits some while the majority of Argentines suffer. Today we retake the path that made this country great. Today we embrace the ideas of libertarianism.
Milei's rival, Economy Minister Sergio Massa, conceded before official results were out. In a speech that lightly veiled his centrist concerns over Milei, Massa said Argentina expected the new president to, quote, provide certainty and guarantees to the functioning of political, social and economic systems. Yet it is Milei's promise to shake everything up that seems to have lured these celebrating supporters to his camp.
Argentina needed a change, and that's why I bet on this new proposal.
I want a change for my country that I deeply love. We've been suffering many years of decadence, and this seemed to me like a good option. No more of the same. Enough already with Peronism. We already know them.
The challenges facing Milei are enormous, from the government and central banks' empty coffers to a $44 billion debt program with the International Monetary Fund and inflation nearing 150%. He's pledging economic shock therapy with plans to shut the central bank, ditch the peso for the dollar, and slash spending, pushing for minimal state intervention in line with the libertarian ethos. He used to carry around a chainsaw in a symbol of his planned cuts, but shelved it in recent weeks in favor of a more moderate image. The eccentric 53-year-old is also staunchly anti-abortion, backs looser gun laws, and has criticized the progressive Pope Francis. Milei faces a highly fragmented Congress with no single bloc having a majority. This means he will need backing from other factions to push through legislation. After October's first-round vote, Milei struck an uneasy alliance with the country's main conservative bloc. That helped him win middle-ground voters on Sunday, but it could also put the reins on some of his more extreme plans.
The global far right is, however, ecstatic about Javier Milei's resounding election triumph in Argentina, a victory that experts anticipate shall transform Buenos Aires into a burgeoning hub for the radical populist right. Trump and former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, who are eyeing a return to power in 24 and 26, expressed joy over Javier's success. Milei has already announced plans to travel to the US and Israel after the victory, with a pledge to relocate Argentina's embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Born in 1970, Javier Milei made his mark by transitioning from a member of a Rolling Stones cover band to a politician. His journey in the political arena has been notable. Renowned for his outspoken and occasionally controversial economic commentary on Argentinian television, Milei secured a seat in Congress in 2021, representing the Libertarian Party Libertad Avanza. His eccentric and unconventional style earned him the nickname El Loco, meaning the madman. Not just Trump and Bolsonaro, even Portugal's André Ventura has praised Milei's struggle to defend society. Italy's Salvini, Spain's Abascal and Hungary's Novak extended their congratulations to him as well. Milei achieved a sweeping victory in 21 of Argentina's 23 provinces, but narrowly lost in Buenos Aires, a Peronist stronghold. Experts have advised against viewing it as a major conservative shift, suggesting voters expressed discontent with Peronists amid economic crisis. Three people were killed and 8 were wounded in overnight Russian missile attacks and shelling in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk and Kharkiv regions. Missiles hit a hospital in the Donetsk town of Selyidov and a coal mine. Interior Minister Klimenko said on the Telegram messaging service. Germany shall support Ukraine with yet another military aid package worth 1.3 billion euros that will include an additional IR-IST air defense unit.
I have the honor and the pleasure to announce a new package for my visit here, and in this package is included, of course, another 4 further systems of IRIS-T SLM. Is included is artillery ammunition of 155 and panzer defense mines. So we are altogether, it's a package of 1.3 billion euros, and I'm quite sure this is the 5th package since last winter. This will help you in your fight against the Russian aggression.
In a video message commemorating the Day of Dignity and Freedom, Ukrainian President Zelensky said that Ukrainians shall not allow their freedom to be taken away.
Today we celebrate the Day of Dignity and Freedom. It is a public holiday established to commemorate the beginning of two revolutions, the 2004 revolution and the Revolution of Dignity 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we started a new page of struggle. 10 years ago, Ukrainians launched their first counteroffensive against unlawfulness, against attempts to deprive us of our European future, against our subjugation. Year after year, step after step, we do everything to ensure that our star shines in the circle of stars on the EU flag, which symbolizes the unity of the peoples of Europe. The star of Ukraine. 20 years ago, it was a romantic dream. 10 years ago, an ambitious goal. And today, a reality in which it is impossible to stop our progress and the completion of all the mandatory stages. Therefore, our candidate status and further accession negotiations should definitely finish with Ukraine's full membership in the EU. And we are doing all this despite the war, when our people are defending themselves and Europe right now, because we have dignity and will not allow our freedom to be taken away from us.
5 mummies that are around 1,000 years old have been unearthed in the Peruvian capital of Lima, archaeologist Takuda said on Tuesday. These were found in a 3,500-year-old pre-Inca temple. 4 were apparently children, of whom 3 were covered with textiles and the other 2 skeletons. These are 1,000 years old. As mentioned earlier, the pre-Inca Yaxma culture inhabited the central coast of Peru from around 900 to 1450 AD. In the tiny village of Sesklo in central Greece, Vasilis Siamitas has experienced the extremes of unusual weather this summer, turning Greece into a hotspot for climate change.
From recent natural disasters in central Greece was clearly visible outside the home of Vasilis Siamitas and his family in the village of Sesklo. After 2 rainstorms in September, a bridge across this stream was destroyed and water supply lines were uprooted. The family car was swept away too. But Siamitas, who is a farmer and businessman, said that's only part of what his family has endured, as the area also experienced a wildfire in July that scorched their almond grove.
There is nothing else that can happen to me. That is, my fields were burned, my house almost burned down, 2 shops, the 2 businesses that I own were flooded, my house was flooded, I'm a flood victim. I don't have a car. What else can I say? There is nothing else.
The storms killed at least 16 people and turned the area into an inland sea, destroying homes, farms, and wiping out swaths of crops. Vasilis and the rest of his family were trapped in the house for 24 hours, but were not hurt. Their crops, including these almond trees, had already been decimated by the fire 2 months earlier that burned for 2 days. It occurred during a summer when Greece had its longest heat wave in 30 years.
The weather conditions were so bad, the wind, there was no humidity that day. The fire was moving fast. There was not enough time to do anything.
Siamitas said the trees need to be uprooted and new ones need to be planted. It will take them 5 years to produce a crop. It is becoming a part of life here as fierce storms and floods have become more frequent in recent years, making Greece a climate change hotspot.
This year's UN Climate Conference in Dubai marks the world's 28th leadership gathering to confront global warming since the first conference of the parties in 1995. Here's a look at some of the key moments in the history of climate negotiations.
The world's 28th leadership gathering to confront the existential threat posed by climate change begins on November 30th in Dubai. As world leaders look to address our long-known problem, here's a look at some key moments in the history of climate negotiations. In 1990, at the UN's Second World Climate Conference, scientists highlight the risks of global warming to nature and society. British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher calls for binding emissions targets.
We need to speed up action and set ourselves higher targets and shorter deadlines.
In 1992, countries at the Rio Earth Summit sign on to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. It establishes the idea that developed countries must do more to tackle climate warming emissions. In 1995, the first Conference of the Parties, or COP, is held in Berlin. A final document calls for legally binding emissions targets. In 1997, at COP3 in Kyoto, Japan, parties agree to emissions cuts for developed countries. In 2005, the Kyoto Protocol goes into effect. It's a legally binding treaty in which 55 countries agree to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. In 2009, COP15 talks in Copenhagen nearly collapse amid efforts to agree to a binding post-Kyoto framework. Countries instead vote to take note of a non-binding political statement. COP16, 17, and 18 all failed to set new binding emissions targets. Delegates in Doha at COP18 instead extended the Kyoto Protocol through 2020. In 2015, COP21 results in the Paris Agreement.
L'accord de Paris pour le climat est accepté.
The first global pact to call for increasingly ambitious emissions pledges from both developed and developing countries. Delegates also pledged to try to keep warming to within 1.5 degrees Celsius. In 2017, U.S. President Donald Trump pulls the U.S. out of the Paris Treaty.
The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord.
4 years later, in 2021, newly elected U.S. President Joe Biden rejoins the Paris Agreement. At COP26 later that year, the Glasgow Pact sets a goal of using less coal and resolves rules for trading carbon credits to offset emissions. In 2022, COP27 in Egypt marks a historic deal for a loss and damage fund for costly climate disasters, but does little to address the emissions fueling such disasters.
Bolivian firefighters face a mammoth task to control the fires ravaging thousands of hectares in the north of Bolivia on Tuesday. Bolivian Defense Minister on Monday said that the fires have consumed over 3 million hectares of the Bolivian Amazon. Weather forecasts predict heat waves for the next few days, which has prompted the president to ask for international help to fight the fires. On Tuesday, 30 Venezuelan firefighters arrived in Bolivia to support firefighting efforts, and French President Emmanuel Macron announced 100 firefighters shall be sent to the Andean country. According to latest reports from the Bolivian Environment Ministry, over 1,27,000 fire outbreaks were detected in the month of November alone.
Vayan cruzando, vayan cruzando. Vayan cruzando, vayan cruzando.
That's all we have in this bulletin. Thank you for watching. You're watching News9 Live.
News9